Yo, what is going on today, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. I sound better today. Thursdays, Fridays videos, I listened to them and I sounded horrible. I feel a lot better. Monday's stream, Monday's video will be normal. I won't sound like I'm dying. I'll be all right. Today is solo lane. We're focusing on, actually this week is solo lane, but we are focusing on the items for this video. There will be a tier list probably for Wednesday. Last week was supposed to be patch updates on Tuesday. And then on the Monday and Wednesday, it was going to be mid lane videos. But then the patch update video didn't come. And I just didn't record anything else because I was expecting that. And now I'm expecting it again. You know what they say about insanity?
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Today's solo items. Wednesday's going to be solo gods. Let's just jump right in. We're going to be going through all the defensive options. These will be anything with Fizz, magical procs, health, HP 5, or CCR. And then we'll touch on maybe one of the power items. But yeah, it's mostly going to be focused on solo lane warriors. And it's going to be most of these items. Wingblade. Statted pretty poorly. It is a somewhat cheap, well, it's a very cheap item. 1850 gold is incredibly cheap, but it's statted pretty poorly and it's basically just a passive. You can build this if you are dying because of slows, and getting out of that slow will mean you won't die. I.e., you're playing something like Ymir into something that has a slow Ymir. Because I don't know why I can't think of another slow right now. But yeah, we'll just say you're playing Ymir into Ymir. Then you might want the Wingblade because you don't have a dash to get away from him. So yeah. Okay, Wingblade might be okay. Relic Dagger, not really a solo item. I don't think we'll ever see this in solo. I was curious to see if this Eldritch Dagger would allow solo laners to build it. Doesn't seem like that's the case. It's a very health efficient item, good stats all around, and it's actually not like a horrible cost. Problem is it's very hard to activate this item, and usually you want like a Pridwin glyph or that new breastplate glyph, which we'll touch on later. But Eldritch Dagger seems like it'd be okay, but it's just not bought. Touch on Bewitch Dagger quickly too. It's not really a solo lane item either. It's mostly bought in support. If you need some anti-attack speed, usually you're just going mid-guard. Bewitch Dagger's not too great in support or in solo. Cannoneers, it's a support item. Yes, you can build this in solo lane if you need a little bit extra clear over there. It can be okay. Would I say build it? No. But you can if you need a little extra clear, and it really doesn't feel all that bad in solo. Lotus Sickle. Are you playing Guan Yu? Yeah, sure, build it. Are you playing not Guan Yu? Yeah. Don't build it. Gives you protections based when you heal. Guan spams his one so much that he can almost always have it just permanently on allies, the physical protection. And it becomes a 30 protection item. 30 physical protection, 10 magical protections with health, cooldown, and movement speed. Gives him a little bit of extra survivability, and it's a pretty cheap item. I think, though, it's a little overshadowed right now by Regrowth and Breastplate, both the breastplates. So I don't think it's going to be that good, but yes, it is a viable option. Sov, kind of fallen out of the meta. More items have been given HP 5 in laning phase. Both Glads, Berserkers, and Phalanx all have HP 5 now, so you don't really see this one too often in the solo lane. Oni Hunter's Garb, it's a good item. It is CCR, which is overlooked a lot of the times, magical protections, and damage mitigation when enemies are around you. It also gives you health. This one's a very good full tank solo lane magical defense item. If you're playing into 3 magical gods and then you're diving those magical gods, say like a mage ADC, mage mid, and a support that's going to be playing black backline, yes, Onis can be very, very good. Heartward Amulet. We saw a phase where Amulet of the Stronghold was built. This was before both Breastplate got buffed and Pridwin got buffed. No longer do we really see this. No longer do we see Heartward at all in solo lane. I think it's a pretty dead item there, and it's pretty dead in support too, to be honest. Stone of Gaia. Magi's. To be fair, Stone of Gaia I think just needs buffs. I think it's a pretty understated item. Doesn't feel all too great. Don't ever build it until it's buffed. Magi's kind of the same thing. Usually there's just better options that are going to give you survivability off of CCs, namely Spirit's Robe and even Mantle will be better. They're just statted better. Magi's is fine, but it's just not great. Talisman of Energy, it's just overshadowed. Another magical item or another item in general that's just overshadowed. It's overshadowed by Onis, Shoguns, Genjis, Pesty, Prophetic. There's a bunch of items that overshadow it. It's fine. Yes. Is it great though? No. Phalanx. This is your, well, it used to be a much more go-to physical defense item. It is no longer the end-all be-all in solo lane. It is still pretty solid. It's just overshadowed by just some of the better items. Are you going to be fighting in your waves and they're going to be hitting you? Are you playing into like an Osiris or Bellona or something like that? Phalanx can be okay, but most of the times there's just better options. Genji's a pretty underrated magical defense item where if you aren't overcapping your cooldown by that first item, then this is a fine option. A lot of times, though, problem is Breastplate is very good right now, and Predator is really good right now. Both give 20% cooldown, and then Spirit's Robe gives you a little bit more. Prophetic, which is bought a lot, gives you more. Mantle, another item that gives you more. There's usually just a way, or usually you're just gonna be overcapped on cooldown, so Genji's isn't gonna have a ton of value. Mail of Renewal, not a good solo item. Very rarely do I think it's ever even decent. By the time you're building this, Anti-Hail is just gonna be online. It's not a good first item. If they buff it, maybe it comes back as a rush item, but it doesn't scale very well, so it's just meh. Shoguns, in the current solo meta, Shoguns is insane. Alma is very good. Even Bologna is very good. And then even some Guardians or more off-meta warriors are building it just because of how strong Shoguns is. 30% attack speed around you. It's insane, especially with how good like Alma is right now. Shoguns is kind of like an end-all, be-all magical defense item currently. Absolution, absolutely not. Not a solo item. Yes, it can be okay if you're playing a warrior that doesn't have any CC immunity and you want that little bit extra CC immunity. Is there actually a single warrior that doesn't have CC immunity? That's actually such a good question. Erlang, I guess, or if you're playing Erlang solo, Absolution can be fine. Gilg, I guess, is another one. Odin. So I guess on any of them, Erlang, Gilg, and Odin, it can be okay, but that's the only case. Breastplate of Regrowth, very good if you're a healer. I think even now, though, it is the same cost as Breastplate of Valor, and a lot of people are just opting for Breastplate of Valor currently, but I think some gods can still use Breastplate of Regrowth pretty well. It's just Breastplate of Valor into Breastplate of Determination is so OP right now. I'm going to talk about both of them currently because they're the same cost. This item just instantly gives you so much survivability in the way of MP5, so you never run out of mana. Cooldowns, so you're almost always going to have abilities up. A ton of physical protections, and then when you upgrade it to this physical, or this Determination breastplate, for only 600 more gold, you're getting protections of both magical and physical, and then you're getting movement speed when you get that passive procced. So it is very, very strong, and we talked about this for mid lane a little bit. Breastplate of Vigilance is also fine. It's just a little overshadowed. It's still very strong into a double backline auto attack duo, but it's just not the end all be all item. Frostbound, you'll see this item picked up a little bit. It is a solid item for damage, a little bit of utility, and it's usually bought as like a once-off damage item. They'll go 5 defense items and then maybe like a Frostbound. We saw that a couple times this weekend where Frostbound is just kind of sprinkled in every once in a while. It's very hard to fight into Frostbound, very hard to get away from it, and it comes up actually a lot quicker than you think. It lasts for 3 seconds and it occurs every 8 seconds, so it's kind of annoying to deal with it. Contagion, it's still strong, but it's kind of being overlooked a little bit now. Not great damage, but it's got anti-heal, and it's kind of a pain for keeping people in combat. A lot of times people try to blink and they have Contagion on them, and it's a pain to deal with, so it's okay. I think it's fine as like a second option for Contagion, like maybe like a Breastplate into Contagion if you need the anti-heal, but it's just not a rush item. But second, third, fourth, fifth item, it could be fine. Breastplate of Valor, I already talked about it. It's fucking insane right now. Emperor's Armor, it can be an okay solo item. It's just usually bought in support. If you're diving towers, yes, it can be fine, but it's just not giving anything to help you survive diving the enemy backline other than some protections and health. Erosion, it's not too great. It's not too great right now. I think it's fine. The aura is just a little too low. 40 units makes it hard to get onto most of the enemy backline. The passive you get from it is also not too impactful. The stats are okay, not great, and it's kind of expensive. I mean, 2250 isn't cheap, but overall, if you're playing into a lot of shields, yes, you should probably build it. Berserkers, kind of fallen off a little bit. Same with Phalanx. I think it's a slightly worse option than Phalanx a lot of time, but if you're playing something like Alma, you're playing something like Bologna, Berserkers is still a very good option. That mitigation cannot be understated, even though it's 5%. It's a fine first item. It's a fine second item. Usually that's about where it ends, though. Feyblessed Hoops, they buffed it. Are you playing Guan Yu? Yes. Good. Are you not playing Guan Yu? Bad. Archdruids, almost bought every game in solo. Some gods won't be building it, but most gods will be building this. It is very good burst. It's good survivability. The MP5 cannot be understated. Overall, it's a good item. Manticore Spikes. Do you have a lot of CC that can proc Manticore a lot? I.e. gods like Tyr, Shiva. If you have at least 2 consistent ways to get it, yes, it's a good pickup. If you don't, it's a bad pickup. Runeforged Hammer. We're seeing this a lot in jungle and somewhat in solo lane. Gods like Thor, gods that have a lot of CCs. I mean, same as Manticore, Shiva, Tyr. I think Runeforged is kind of overshadowing Manticore right now. They buffed it to 15% more damage, which is an insane amount. It's also good HP 5, and it's solid power now. I think it is a better option than Manticore, but Manticore is a slightly more safe option because it gives you so many more protections. Runeforged is a more aggressive option with power. Midgard. Do you want to slow the enemy's auto attacks and reduce auto attack damage from the enemy? Build this item. Stone of Binding. Always going to be a good solo lane item. It shreds protections. It's flat protections also, so when you're diving the enemy, you can reduce their physical protections and their magical protections. But you need some sort of CC and a consistent form of CC. If you're just playing Osiris and you're very rarely... Actually, that's a lie because a slow counts as a CC. Playing something like... Never mind. It's good every game. Spectral. Are they building crit? Build Spectral. Are they not building crit? Don't build Spectral. Toxic Blade. Do you want to box the enemy ADC or jungle? Build Toxic Blade. If you don't care about that or you want to be tankier, don't build it. But it is a fine item if you're planning on trading with the enemy ADC / jungler. Prophetic. An insane second and first item right now if you can get stacks on it. Honestly, if I was a soul laner, I would build this nearly every single game. I think Deathwalker does. I think Solo Patrol builds it nearly every game. It's phenomenal if you can get it stacked. Even if you don't get it stacked, it's still very, very good for survivability, but it's just not a normal item which helps in your 1v1. It's not an item where you're playing for the 1v1. It's an item where you're playing for the late game to be as efficient and effective as possible. Abyssal Stone, I think it's a little underrated. I think its downsides, it's just you're building this and then you're just not building something else. So if you say you go like breastplate, cloak, and then you're looking for that third item, yeah, Abyssal Stone can be good, but then you're not getting burst from Archdruids or extra damage from Stone of Binding, or you can't deal with their shields like Erosion, or you're not as tanky from CC like Spirit's Robe. So it's fine. It's just a lot of times overshadowed by others. But if you're playing against like a lot of cooldown spammers on the enemy team, a lot of stance switchers, it can be good, yes. Gauntlet of Thebes. We've seen Solo Patrol start building this a lot too. It's another thing, kind of same as Cloak, except it's a lot easier to stack. You'll see him go this 5th item and still get it stacked by the end of the game. Phenomenal item in solo. Don't be surprised if it gets nerfed soon, and sorry supports for the solo laners abusing this. Glad Shield, dead item. It needs to be buffed before you build it again. I swear I have not seen this item in so long. It just doesn't do enough damage. It doesn't give you survivability. It's not strong in laning phase because it's so expensive. It is on the downward trend. Find a different item. Don't build this. Dawnbringer, kind of the same as Abyssal. It's fine. But then if you're building this, you're not building like Runeforge, you're not building Archdruids or Spirit's Robe or whatever it is. It can be a fine 6th item, but it's so bad for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th item. It's kind of like Frostbound where it's just sprinkled into the end of the build sometimes. Pesty. Do they have a lot of magical damage and healing? Gods like Hell, Oleruns, Freyas, stuff like that. Pesty can be very strong into. Or if they have just a Guardian and solo lane that relies on healing, RDO, Serb, stuff like that, Pesty can be really strong. I'm pretty sure CAD Club is in a bad spot now. The stats on it are so meh. It's just like a bunch of stats sprinkled together that don't really do a ton. Little power, little health, little MP5, a little bit of cooldown, a little bit of CCR, a little bit of movement speed, a little bit of healing increased. But it's 2,400 gold. It's kind of like a Guan Yu, maybe Horus option. And then other than that, it's just pretty bad. Spirit's Robe, very, very strong item. Works into almost every single solo lane build. Build it if you're worried about getting blown up off of like an Athena taunt or Ymir freeze. The CCR is good even if you're not using the passive all that well, and it's statted very well. I'm gonna say it. Sekhmet's is officially getting its looks. It is a very good item. Compare this to stuff like CAD. You compare it to Regrowth. You compare it to Lotus. I think this item is insane. Gods like Surtur, gods like Guan, any god that has a heal that also wants to spam abilities, Sekhmet's is so OP on. 35 power is very insane. 150 health, not that much. Cooldown MP5 is fine, but that passive means you're spamming abilities and it's so OP. Pridwin. Base Pridwin is horrible. It is a terrible, terrible item. However, Reverent Pridwin and Glorious Pridwin are very strong items. Glorious Pridwin is a little bit more damage, a little bit more burst. Reverent Pridwin is a little bit more survivability, so you can get more abilities onto the enemy. Henceforth, kind of giving you a little bit more damage in return, just being a little bit tankier for you to get more damage off. I think Reverent is slightly better right now, but don't sleep on Glorious Pridwin. It's still a lot of burst. Mystical Mail, horrible. They're never buffing it either. Get this, like I try to build it all the time. It's so bad. Don't build it. Stinky item. This was going to be a personal gripe item into the actual thoughts about it. I never build this item because it desyncs autos. Desyncing autos is basically when your damage and your auto attack animation no longer link up and like hit together. So like the damage and the ability or the auto come across at the same time. Instead, it's like auto damage, auto damage, auto damage, like stuff like that. And it's very annoying. So I never build this item because it makes it happen just a lot more common when your attack speed changes a lot. But saying that, it is still a very good item well, okay. It is a very good item. Period. However, it would be even better if it was consistent with not desyncing autos. It's still very good. Gods like Alma abuse it. Bellona even uses it decently well. It's not a horrible item. I'm just not building it because I hate the desync. And Mantle, it's very expensive. Yes, I mean, 450 gold more than any other item. However, it's still very good in what it does. That CC immunity you get when you get low, it's good protections and then good cooldown. Overall, it's a fine item. I'm just not usually building it because I think you can get better items usually elsewhere. Just thinking about like Spirit's Robe or Prophetic. Kind of just do what Mantle does, except in a different way. Mantle, you get the CC immunity when you get low. This one, you try to stay away from getting low, so you get that mitigation from getting bursted. And this one, you just try to reduce that damage across an entire period of time, so then you can just eventually start moving. But Mantle's still fine. And last item I want to talk about is Soul Eater. It's kind of fallen off a little bit in solo lane, but gods like Thor will still build it sometimes. Gods like Shiva, Surtur. I think even them at this point will no longer be building it. I think Runeforged or Sekhmets are kind of taking over that lane. But Soul Eater is still a fine option in solo lane. It's just not the best solo lane item anymore. But there it is. That is the solo lane meta item build breakdown. If you guys have any questions, drop them down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.